Malloy's insane gun law proposal. I'm putting this video together not just as an educational piece, but as a distress call to all the other states in the Union and to all the gun manufacturers in existence to keep my right to defend myself and my family. Alright, I've been reading this proposal and it's completely insane. It doesn't do anything to make our community any safer. All it's doing is taking away our rights to save our own lives and is using the graves of all those poor children in Sandy Hook to push this agenda, which obviously was written well before the event even happened. So let me jump right on into it. When reading Malloy's proposal, you notice that he has a series of numbered points which really have more points inside of them. The first point, though, has to deal with background checks. The truth of the matter is that when you buy even a rifle in the state of Connecticut, it goes through the FBI, it goes through the state police, and it goes through your local police department. There already is a series of background checks that need to be completed. Now, the interesting thing is that he has a problem with the guns that get passed down through family. If you're a father, you have a family heirloom, and you give it down to your son or daughter, that's a problem. He wants a federal background check on that firearm and that transaction, and also it must be recorded with a series of law enforcement officials, similar to a gun registry. Where it starts getting really interesting is this paragraph. He wants to expand the list of crimes that make an individual ineligible to own a firearm. He's taking away people's rights and turning them into privileges. It says here that there already is a long list of non-felony misdemeanors that make an individual ineligible to purchase a firearm, but he wants to expand those in our state. He says that they should be expanded to exempt individuals who've been convicted of any offense related to a firearm, the use of force, or even a simple threat of force. Ladies and gentlemen, there is literally a large number of people who have been brought up on charges on threats of force for silly jokes. You go to a gymnasium with somebody, someone says, if I saw that governor, I'd punch him in the nose. Now what happens is they have a threat of force pushed against them and their gun rights are taken away from them. It says here, other serious non-felony offenses can also be included. He goes on to mention convictions such as the use of controlled substances. How many young people's lives are ruined due to controlled substances? How large is the prison population in the United States? Well, I can tell you it's the largest in the world, and a lot of it has to do with these victimless crimes. So besides ruining your young life now, you're also going to lose your right to defend your life. It says here that operating a vehicle under the influence of drugs or alcohol within the past 5 years is an offense that can be used to take away your right to own a firearm. You can no longer get a permit to own a firearm, and if you have one, it's taken away. That's a serious problem. This paragraph has to do with keeping background checks updated. It's not just a background check to get a firearm. Now there's a constant ongoing process of making sure that that background check is updated with crimes. Similar to some places in Canada where every day they check to see if you committed a crime to try to take away your gun. It says here the governor will direct state agencies to work with the judicial branch to review the processes and speed in which firearms can be retrieved after conviction of an offense, basically making it quicker for an individual to become ineligible to own a firearm and defend their life. A lot of people heard me say permitting and they're like, well, that's okay. I own hunting rifles and hunting shotguns. I don't need to worry about being permitted. They can take them away all day long. Not the case. Malloy wants to expand permitting to practically every other firearm. You see, permits were originally established to prevent people from carrying concealed weapons. It's legal to open carry an unloaded firearm, but still many people get charges pushed against them for carrying such a thing. But anyway, the story is that he wants to make it so you have to get a permit, taking away your right and turning it into a privilege to buy any semi-automatic weapon. Rifles, shotguns, anything that isn't operated by a bolt, lever, pump, whatever silly business it is, now is considered practically an assault weapon. How much longer till someone commits a shooting with a bolt-action weapon, and now those weapons are also banned? One of the interesting things about semi-automatic technology is it's been around for over 100 years. There wasn't this massive outcry for mass shootings occurring many, many years ago. Perhaps we just suffer from a cultural decline, and it's really not the weapons that are the problem, but perhaps it's the people. Malloy's next point is to institute objective uniform standards. Currently in the state of Connecticut, if you want a firearms permit, it goes through your local police department. They decide who's eligible to get a permit for a concealed weapon and who isn't. Okay, that's how it should be. It's up to the people who live in the communities to decide who can own a firearm and who can't. What Malloy wants to do is create some sort of conglomerate, some sort of large state organization that can decide who can get a firearm and who can't. Yeah, that's not going to be corrupt at all. Finally, we're on to point number 2, the ban of large capacity magazines. Under current Connecticut law, there is really no limit on the magazine capacity you can have. But I want you to listen to this language. High capacity magazines, like the ones used in the Sandy Hook shooting, increase the destructive power of any firearm. That is absolute lie. It is impossible for a magazine to alter the physical characteristics of ammunition or the destructive power of a firearm. It says here that large capacity magazines or other ammunition feeding devices, like those underbarrel magazines that are part of your firearm, must be banned. Individuals who have such things must turn them in over to the police department, God knows where they'll end up then, sell them out of state or modify them so they can hold less than 10 rounds. What is the significance about 10 rounds? Why not a dozen rounds? Why not a baker's dozen? Who decides on 10 rounds? Criminals aren't going to listen to this 10-round magazine ban. They're going to wait until you fire 10 shots and then come in and kill you. That's the way it works. There's plenty of videos on YouTube showing that the only people who get affected by magazine bans are the law-abiding citizens. Mass shooters, you can't stop them even with 10-round magazines. It's just the way it is. I want to include a personal story here. I know a gentleman whose brother has cerebral palsy. One of the fun things they like to do is go out shooting. Now the brother, obviously he's physically disabled, he can't do a lot with his life, and it's one of the few things he has pleasure in is shooting with his brother. He can't reload his magazines too easily, obviously. So he has to use high capacity magazines so he can go plinking with his brother. That's just the way it is. Now you're going to take away that man's right to defend himself, and you're also going to take away the last bit of fun he has. Great work, Malloy. Malloy's next point is strengthening the ban on military-style assault weapons. Well, first off, assault is an action, not an object. And what exactly is a military-style weapon? He says, under today's definition of an assault weapon, many military-style weapons, including the ones used in the Sandy Hook shooting, are not captured. Interesting choice of language. Captured. Later he goes on to explain that these particular types of weapons will not be able to be transferred. Anyway, he says that he should expand the definition of an assault weapon. This is one of the things I was very, very afraid about. You see, what exactly is an assault weapon? It doesn't have a clear definition. It's always changing. Pretty soon, anything that fires a bullet will be classified as an assault weapon and must be banned. But anyway, he says here that the assault weapons ban should exempt law enforcement officers, correction officials, military and naval personnel discharging from their official duties. So if you join the Army or are in the police force, you can now keep your weapon. I thought the theory was that a safer society wouldn't have these weapons. Isn't that what everyone's proposing? That we should get rid of all these weapons, and because they don't exist, the world would be safer? Well, you're not getting rid of them. You're just consolidating the power in the hands of the pro-government people. Now, I'm not saying that citizens aren't pro-government, but the fact of the matter is that when citizens cannot defend themselves against the government, there tends to be tyranny. Malloy's point goes on to address the individuals who legally purchase their firearms. Those who illegally purchase their firearms can continue to commit crimes with them. But anyway, individuals who legally purchase their firearms must by October 1st, 2013 register their firearms and also be granted a certificate of possession and obtain a permit. They're taking away their rights and turning them into privileges. Gun registration is the perfect start for a gun confiscation. Hitler did it in Nazi Germany. There's a great movie called Innocence Betrayed. It goes on to explain exactly what happened every time there was gun registration throughout the world. But anyway, this point goes on to explain that anytime you have one of these supposed assault weapons, which is virtually every weapon now that exists, they have to be unloaded and be locked up and be inaccessible to anyone in the motor vehicle. So you can no longer go hunting with the rifle in the back of your truck. Right in the back where the passenger could just pull it down from the window and use it. That's now illegal, and I'm pretty sure if you did that, they'll try taking it away from you. But it says here that an individual can no longer choose to sell or transfer an assault weapon. That's just the way it is. They have to be booted out of state. So a whole future generation of people will no longer have a right to defend themselves. A lot of people are probably wondering, what makes a weapon an assault weapon? Well, under Dannel Malloy, practically everything is an assault weapon. If you have a semi-automatic rifle that accepts a magazine and has a series of features such as a folding or telescoping stock, a pistol grip, a thumbhole stock, a bayonet mount, flash suppressor, muzzle brake, muzzle compensator, threaded barrel, a grenade launcher, or even a second hand grip or protruding grip that can be held by the non-trigger hand. That makes a rifle an assault rifle. Well, that makes absolutely no sense because none of those features make a weapon more lethal. A folding or telescoping stock actually makes a weapon easier to be fired by a woman or a short person. A pistol grip doesn't do anything to make a weapon more lethal. A thumbhole stock, same story. A bayonet mount, I never heard of a mass bayoneting. A flash suppressor actually makes a rifle safer to be fired, is the best way I can explain it, because when a person fires a weapon, there's a big flash out of the barrel. A flash suppressor reduces that flash which gets to the firer's eye so they can more accurately fire the weapon. Basically, a safer way to fire a weapon. A muzzle brake reduces muzzle climb or recoil. Same thing with a muzzle compensator. A threaded barrel doesn't do anything besides it's a threaded barrel. A grenade launcher, you cannot get a grenade launcher on a rifle. And a second hand grip, let's talk about that. That gentleman I mentioned earlier who has cerebral palsy fires a weapon which has a foregrip because he cannot fire a weapon with just a standard pistol style grip. He needs the second hand so he can accurately fire that weapon. Now you're taking away his right to defend his life and the one thing that he can still do to make his life valuable. I'm so fed up with this Malloy administration. Now, Malloy goes on to explain that even pistols now are assault rifles. That's right, a semi-automatic pistol that can accept a detachable magazine and has one of the following features, such as an ammunition magazine that attaches to the pistol outside of the pistol grip. What's the difference between a magazine that goes inside of a pistol grip or one that goes outside of a pistol grip? A threaded barrel capable of accepting a barrel extender, a flash suppressor, a forward hand grip, or silencer. A silencer? Well, obviously this wasn't written by someone who knows anything about guns because there's really not a thing called a silencer. There is such a thing called a suppressor. A shroud that is attached to or partially or completely encircles the barrel and permits the shooter to hold the firearm with the non-trigger hand without being burned. They want you to literally burn yourself while defending your life. A manufactured weight of 50 ounces or more when the pistol's unloaded. How does a handgun's weight make it more lethal? What are you going to do? Throw it at someone? And also, a semi-automatic version of an automatic firearm is something which makes it considered an assault rifle. So, if you have a fully automatic weapon, its design has been converted to a semi-automatic firearm, now all of a sudden it's considered the same thing as if it was a fully automatic weapon. How does that make any sense? Many people were told, buy shotguns, they wouldn't be regulated. That's not the case. Under Dan Malloy, shotguns are assault rifles. It says here that if you have a semi-automatic shotgun with features such as a folding or telescoping stock, it is an assault rifle. A pistol grip makes it an assault rifle. A thumbhole stock makes it an assault rifle. A fixed magazine capacity in excess of 5, count them, 5 rounds now makes it an assault rifle. The ability to accept a detachable magazine makes it an assault rifle. A second hand grip is an assault rifle feature. So if you have a shotgun, now it can be classified as an assault rifle. And once again, they can try to take it away from you. Point 4 goes on to talk about safer storage practices for firearms. Currently, under our state law, you can't have firearms laying around children. Well, that only deals with minors. It says here that he wants to amend the statute so that if you have adults in your house and you have a firearm that's not under strict lock and key, now all of a sudden you could be charged with a crime. So you can no longer have those nice hunting shotguns sitting on top of your fireplace because that is a crime. Malloy's next part is titled Improve Enforcement of Existing Laws. Now, it really goes on to explain itself better. Prioritize the prosecution of gun-related crimes. You see, one of the interesting things it says is that most of the crime that's committed in Connecticut's large cities actually involves firearms that were sold or transferred illegally. So the legal gun owners really aren't the ones causing all the crime. But yet, it says here that the governor will work with law enforcement and state attorneys to prioritize the enforcement of gun laws. Finally, some information from the Sandy Hook Advisory Commission. Get this. Back when Sandy Hook happened, Dan Malloy put together an advisory commission to decide what exactly needed to be done to prevent such a thing from ever happening again. And the story was that they were actually going towards the idea of having armed guards in schools, eliminating gun-free zones, encouraging gun ownership. They were going on the side of pro-gun. And Malloy, obviously, as an anti-gun person, Can't have that happen. So he created his own agenda, created this list to once again try to limit the rights of individuals to bear arms. Well, the Sandy Hook Advisory Commission has been included with this little point here. It says, well, issues related to mental illness and behavioral health are complicated. Really? Things in life are complicated? Never could have thought about that. It is clear that keeping guns out of the hands of those whose behaviors indicate they pose a risk to themselves or others is essential to protecting the public safety. What exactly behavioral characteristics? It doesn't define them. But it says here the governor will ask the Sandy Hook Advisory Commission to examine whether behavioral criteria should be included in proposed mandatory reporting law, and whether physicians, behavioral health professionals, social workers, and other professionals should be included as mandatory reporters of illegal gun activity. Now all of a sudden, people in the medical field might have to start asking you questions about your opinions on guns. One of the problems we have is that with the HIPAA law, it's impossible for a lot of your medical information to be used for other purposes than your own medical issues. Now, another thing that bugs me, though, is what behavioral criteria are we talking about? Are we talking about asking people if they're pro-government, asking people if they believe that the government they have currently is a good thing? I mean, how far into just simple little things can make someone behaviorally imbalanced so that they cannot own a firearm? Just something to think about. People always warn you to read the fine print. At the end of Malloy's proposal, he included this little interesting point here. Record firearm and ammunition transfers to better anticipate, where you're literally talking about pre-crime, guilty until proven innocent scenarios, and respond to criminal activity involving firearms. Law enforcement needs more accurate information about what firearms and firepower are present in the state. What firepower do citizens in the state own? Firearms and ammunition dealers should be required to maintain electronic records, similar to the electronic records during the Holocaust, of all firearms and ammunition purchased, sold, and should be required to routinely transfer such information to law enforcement. It says here, in order to assist law enforcement in identifying potential threats or illegal conduct, individuals should be required to present driver's license, hunting license, or firearms permit that should be recorded with each purchase and should be maintained in the dealer's electronic records. This is the same record keeping that was in Nazi Germany in the 1930s before World War II and the Holocaust. By executive action, the governor will have now information presented to him on who exactly owns guns and firearms transfers. This is something really, really scary. What can we do now? Well, none of this legislation has been written into law yet. We are still a free people. What citizens in the state of Connecticut can do is write their legislators and tell them they don't want any of this passed and that it is a career killer if they vote on any of this. Now, for other people in other states who are still free, I'm asking for your assistance. I'm asking for your help to keep my life free by going and writing my legislators as well, adding force from other states in the union, and to all those gun manufacturers out there. It's important that you know, in a matter of generations, your business will cease to exist. Your livelihood will no longer exist due to legislators like those in the state of Connecticut, which are trying to eliminate Second Amendment rights. Maybe now you can sell some versions of firearms, but in the future all versions of firearms will be made illegal. It's up to you to stop selling to the police and other government agencies in the state of Connecticut unless they support Second Amendment rights. Only sell to citizens and no government officials. That's one way in which we can curb these laws around. So I'm asking all the people in the United States and even people in other nations to help fight for my right to keep on defending my family. Take care.